Inspiring Change is the beginning of a collection of interviews and stories of creative people. I've always been fascinated by what makes people follow through with their creative ideas, hang on to those sparks of ideas, and follow through all the way to the final stages. The inspiration to start this collection of interviews and stories came from Chris Walton, who sadly no longer is with us. He was passionate and inspirational in the way he followed through with his creation of the eco-village, all the way through into every minute detail. The message he gave to me was like, whatever you want to do, give it a really good go. So I'm following his advice. The purpose of the collection of these stories and interviews is to inspire other people to follow their own creativity and maybe see a little bit of themselves mirrored in one or the other interview or story and go like, oh, I could do something like this. This is a little bit like me. Inspiring change.
My name's Chris Pye, and my areas of creativity are counselling, which is my work, but also songwriting and singing and ultramarathon running. I think it's ever present. I think when I thought about this after our initial conversations, I reflected on the fact that it's kind of interwoven throughout my life. It's kind of ever present, and the boredom thing I think is significant because I think there are moments where if I'm sitting still too long or I don't feel that I'm doing something, that's when creativity seems to come in again and offers me something else to engage with. So there are thoughts. It's usually a cognitive thing. A thought will come into my mind about something that I could create or something which could eventuate. So it's very often about the end product or the goal is the initial creative spark. I could make this happen, or this could take place, or I could go here and do this. And when I get a vision of that end stage of what could be created, that gives me the excitement to think, now I want to make it all happen. We spoke before about that word adventure. I think that the idea of an adventure, of something exciting, some kind of altered state in my life is an exciting thought, and usually that's a creative thing for me. I want to go to that place. I want to experience that thing. So I guess in terms of my music, for instance, I know that feeling of having worked through the doldrums of writing and arranging and producing and pushed through it and getting to the point where I've actually got something that I listen back to on the speakers and go, yes, wow. And that's an altered state. That's a place that I love to be. And so when I'm thinking about a new song, or when a lyric or a melody line or something comes into my mind or my ears when I'm out or whatever it is, I have a moment of jumping forward to that place of, oh wow, that's how good it feels when it all comes together at the end. It'll be a long journey to getting there, but that's the spark. That's the thing that drives me. Yeah. I have to remind myself sometimes to revel in and enjoy the journey, and I'm intermittently successful with that, being able to enjoy the whole process, because I think that holy grail of the finished product is often the most alluring. I'm lucky in that I have a number of creative pursuits in my life now. So my bread and butter is that I work as a counsellor, which is an incredibly creative process of engaging and interacting with people. And then outside of my work, I'm working towards developing ultramarathon projects, and I participate in those myself. That's a hobby and a passion of mine, and I'm working with a charity in India to coordinate a project over there. I had a bucket list idea. My partner and I both had some bucket list ideas, things we wanted to do before we die, and one of his was that he wanted to one day compete in a drag queen pageant, and one of mine was that I wanted to run a marathon. And within a few short months of one another, we brought those to fruition. I began training, he began rehearsing, and before you knew it, the same year we actually did that, and he entered his first competition, I entered my first marathon, and they both went really well. What we thought was going to be a one deal, do it, and we've done it, lit a bit of a spark for us both. And I developed a passion for running and long distance running, to a point where last year I took part in a 24-hour marathon in India. And the byproduct of that was to raise funds for a charity, which Silvia, my partner, and I had become really interested in. And so we went to India around the 24-hour marathon. We went to Rajasthan and spent a week with the charity, and was so moved and blown away by the work they do that, for me, that said, I need to do more of this. I need to stay connected with this charity and do something else, which has given birth to this project called the Thar Desert Ultra, which is a 4-day, multi-day marathon, 50 kilometers a day through desert villages around Jodhpur in Rajasthan. Probably external affirmation plays a part. Having someone else to look at, listen to, say this is worth doing, has some value, plays a part. And it can be a double-edged sword, because I think that if people's feedback isn't what I hope, then that's led me in the past to drop things, to drop projects that I might have continued with, perhaps, if I thought that people were going to love it. So people's response is important, and maybe sometimes not particularly useful for that reason. So I would say I'd probably come back to that idea of keeping my eye on the prize, keeping in mind that end product of what it's going to feel like, that altered state, if you like, that feeling of completion and of brought it to fruition. If I have a strong sense that it's going to get there, and there's going to be that payoff, so it's quite a selfish pursuit, I think, then I think that will drive me through. Another instance is a track that I've written, which is very out of my style. It's quite an urban in style. It's quite urban, quite almost hip hop, and it's about refugees and migrants.
This goes out to all the refugees, Iraqis, Somali, Afghan, Burmese. Australia's still a cool place to be. We're just struggling with some issues of identity. See, I'm embarrassed when friends overseas ask why did those fools you elected concoct all those lies about overboard children, putting families in jail, demonizing the most vulnerable and frail. And these angry young men may pretend to be strong, but
and so I created a piece which I'm really excited by, but it's really not me, and it's in the demo, which I'm happy to play you. It's a white fella, doing this rap, and it doesn't quite work. And so in the back of my mind is this, it's a commitment really that I'm going to get someone involved as a rapper to be involved in that and produce it and record it and put it on iTunes and promote it and spend some time and energy and money doing that, because it's a message that I feel very passionate about. But it's about the right things aligning. So that's one of those things which is on a back burner, but I actually feel very confident is going to happen when it's right. The word that comes to mind is probably vanity, I think. Vanity and ego. I think, wanting to make something of myself, wanting to achieve, wanting to feel good about who I am in the world, wanting to feel like a good person, wanting to feel like a skilled or talented person. I think a lot of it is about that sort of self-concept and how I feel about myself, and I think it drives my creativity, because I believe I'm a creative person, and I want to be a creative person. Yes. A lot of my music is, or a significant amount, is politically oriented in its content, and so that's about wanting to make a statement, wanting to object, wanting my voice to be heard, or an alternative voice or a minority voice to be heard, and that comes from feelings of anger, and probably beneath that feelings of marginalization and feelings of not being heard, that sort of stuff. Particularly in my 40s, since I turned 40 probably, so in the last sort of 6 years or so, I think it's been really important for me that one of my main goals is to have some positive impact, to, our life is limited. I've watched both my parents deteriorate, and it makes me think more about my own mortality and realize that if I'm going to be here for a short period, as we all are relatively, I want that to be a positive footprint rather than a negative, as much as I possibly can. If anything, I want my impact on the world to be good rather than bad. And I think we leave enough bad in terms of our ecological footprint, that if there's some way I can counteract that and have some positive influence on people around me, that makes me feel better about playing a part. My biggest challenge creatively would probably be the challenge I'm engaged with at the moment in a recording studio, in that I've come to a point musically where music's no longer my career. It's not something I do for money, but I've decided I want to recommit some time and energy and money to it. So I'm in a recording studio making an album, which just sounds ridiculous to me now as a middle-aged man who's not a musician anymore, to be saying he's making an album, but I'm making an album. And so that sounds like a big challenge. It's a lot of money to spend, a lot of decisions to make, and a lot of testing of myself to see whether I still have the ability creatively to pull all those threads together and create a product which comes up to my own very high standards. And vocally, that's really tough because vocally, I don't feel that I'm as strong as I was when I was in my 20s, and so I write songs with a lot of demanding elements, a lot of high falsetto, some quite difficult sort of licks, and I can't do them all, so I have to sometimes compromise and work around them and play with different ideas. Constantly try to remind myself to relax and enjoy the creative process. Because when I tighten, then vocally I tighten and I don't perform well. So it's a constant conversation with myself to remind myself to enjoy and to relax and let go. I've always been really fortunate to be, I think, surrounded by supportive people, and I don't rely on or require much support, I think. I do tend to be quite independent and autonomous. So for me, having a partner in my life who is supportive, which I have now, is wonderful. That's enormously supportive. I have a very close relationship with my sister, who knows a lot about my creativity, and she herself is a very creative person. So we share and celebrate each other's creative projects, and that's very important. I'd say those two relationships are probably the most important. I think I would say life is short, and I think it's easy for us to live from a place of fear and insecurity and containment and restriction, and I've been there, so I know what that feels like, and I think I'm gradually learning in my middle age to let go of fear and let go of restriction, and to fully live, and creativity is a huge part of that, I think, for most of us in some way or another. So I think I would say, this is not infinite, this experience we have, and so let's do it now, because tomorrow we might lose the opportunity.